No, yes, we are going to start. We are here with Thomas Roberts from the Vatican, here in the Basilica de San Pedro, doing these interviews, conversations on psychology, spirituality, and mystical experiences. So today we have with us Thomas Roberts. I'm going to read his biography because you have done many, many things. So I'm going to use my computer to read it. So Thomas Roberts, PhD, is a professor emeritus from the Northern Illinois University. He has been visiting scientists at Johns Hopkins University, where we were collaborating with the psychedelic studies. We will talk about that also. You are the author and co-editor of series of books, which I'm going to mention at the end. And you have spoken in many international conferences all over the world on psychedelic consciousness, psychedelic science. You are based in Illinois. You formulate several concepts. You are not going to go to all of them. We are going to focus in a particular theme, but you have coined the multi-state theory, the mind apps concept also, uh, mm, the IDEA concept also, and the Entheogen Reformation. You are co-founder or founding member of the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, of the Council of Spiritual Practices, of the International Transpersonal Association, and you were also the pioneer or creator. You launched the celebration of the Bicycle Day 40 years ago, if I am right. So now this is happening all over the world. So, and your publications include the book Psychedelics and Spirituality, which is the theme in which we are going to focus today, but also you are the author of Psychedelic Horizons, Psychedelic Medicine, the Spiritual Growth with Entheogens, the Psychedelic Future of Mind, Mind Apps, Multi-Theory, Multi-Stage Theory, and Tools for Mind Design. So first of all, how you became interested in, well, hi again, and how you became interested in all this field of psychedelics, in which you have contributed so much.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm really pleased to get a chance to talk with you. Wonderful we can do this over this distance. Well, I've been active for a number of years, and if you keep going at it, you just get a lot done.
Yeah, but how was how you became interested in the first hand in this field? I mean, what brings you to be interested in the field of psychedelics? When and how?
Oh, originally?
Yes, yes, yes. The first time you
Oh,
became interested,
oh,
because
yeah.
it's not a feeling which many people was interested back in the days, no? When you started to be, you're a pioneer basically in this field.
Well, I was at Stanford from 1967 to 1970,
Uh-huh,
which is, of course, near San Francisco. And there
uh-huh,
was a lot of talk about psychedelics.
uh-huh.
And I had a class with Willis Harmness, who was one of the original people there at Stanford.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And his class talked about psychedelics, and I had never heard anybody talk about them before, except,
mm-hmm,
on TV warning kids against psychedelics. And
mm-hmm,
these are graduate students who really seemed to benefit by it, and it really caught me off guard. And then by
mm-hmm.
good luck, I heard Alan Watts speak on campus once,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, I had a lot of good luck in my life, and that was
Mm-hmm,
part of it. And he was talking about the use of psychedelics, not just for recreation, but in philosophy and religion. So I
mm-hmm,
realized at that point, once you get interested in it. And then in February 1970, I had my
mm-hmm.
first experience up at Lake
Uh-huh.
Tahoe, and that
Wow.
really interested me. There was something here worth investigating, not just recreational.
Mm-hmm. So it was a deep experience, a meaningful experience for you, this first psychedelic experience.
I'm sorry?
This experience was your first
Yes,
psychedelic experience was very meaningful for you.
yes. It really told me there was something I wanted to follow up in the rest of my life. And that really has given direction to the rest of my life.
Wow.
Um, Largely out of curiosity. I mean, what's going on here? This is an experience like nothing I'd had before. And
Mm-hmm.
yet I had a sense it was very important and very significant somehow. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to trace down that importance and that significance, a sense that there was something important here that I wasn't quite getting. And that
Mm-hmm.
really got my curiosity going. Actually, I'm in following that ever since 1970 now. So, and I'm still learning more, as you know, more is
Yeah,
coming along all the time.
yeah. Well, it's been 55 years since then, no? 55 years.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Wow.
Here's
And you still remember it.
oh, it's still going. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we are going to focus, as I tell you, the focus is going to be in psychedelics, entheogens, and the future of religion. Well, there is this other term that was coined in the 80s, the term entheogens. So can you describe us define us the concept of entheogens and what is the idea behind it?
In the 1980s.
No, if you can describe us the concept, the term entheogens, and what is behind the idea of calling the psychedelics entheogens.
Oh yes, yes. Um, well, when I became interested in psychedelics, that got me interested in their religious and spiritual use. And then I
Huh?
picked up the word entheogen
Yeah.
somewhere along the line. I wasn't sure. Originally, it was used just as a substitute, a synonym for
Uh-huh.
psychedelic.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think that works very well because
Mm-hmm.
entheo, with the word theo in the middle, of course, directs it toward God. And I
Uh-huh.
think the word entheogen should
Mm-hmm.
be used just only in the religious and spiritual use and not as a
Uh-huh.
synonym for
Yeah.
psychedelic. And
Uh-huh.
so,
Uh-huh.
for instance, I can talk about the entheogenic use of psychedelics,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and
So, mhm.
then psychedelics have their other uses, like psychotherapy. And I've invented the word called ideogen.
Mhm.
Talk about how psychedelics can produce ideas too.
Uh-huh.
And I'm hoping that idea will catch on because I think with all the emphasis on medicine and psychotherapy, we're missing the importance of psychedelics in the world of ideas.
Yeah,
So,
because it's like for creativity, no? For
yes.
creativity and yeah, nice. Yeah, this is another avenue that must be more explored, no? But focusing in the idea of the theogens and in the ideas you propose in your recent paper from the 15 years Bizarre of Words to Personal Sacred Experiences, the new religious era, you propose that you propose three main ideas, no? The first main idea is that we are transitioning from an era of word-based religions to an era of experience-based religion, one whose foundation is an intense personal experience of sacredness or mystical experience. Can you describe us this idea a little bit more? What do you think is going to happen and how is going to be this transition?
Now in religion,
Yeah, you were saying in this paper, no, from the 500 years Wizard of Wars, you say that we are transitioning from an era of word-based religions to an era of experience-based religion, one whose foundation is an intense personal experience of sacredness, of mystical experience, no?
I'm not sure that I got that, but were you asking about
You,
spiritual use,
no,
intellectual use?
yes, you remember this paper you sent me, from the 500-year Wizard of Wars. You remember this paper from the 500 years Wizard
Oh
of
yes.
Wars. So you have three main ideas in this paper,
Oh
no?
yes, yes.
So what is the first main point you are doing in this paper?
Well, I want to point out, I forgot, forgotten now which order I put them in. One is that um, mystical experiences form a center of religion, and
Okay,
they
so
always have. The
mhm.
Catholic system has been much better on mysticism than Protestantism. Protestantism has relied too much on books and the words rather
Uh-huh,
than experience. And Catholicism is much better on things like meditation and so forth, which can bring about mystical experiences. And then I
uh-huh,
want to point out that um, um, that mystical experiences can produce very healthy
uh-huh, uh-huh,
events, and that we know that when people are happy and feeling healthy and things are going well in their lives and so forth,
uh-huh,
that their
uh-huh.
immune system is going very well.
Mhm, mhm.
And so, is there a way of making the immune system of a person feeling very unusually well, even more than usual? Will this boost the immune system even more?
Uh-huh,
And
uh-huh.
this is what I'm wondering, so psychedelics do this. Will
Uh-huh.
psychedelics not just will take advantage of the natural immune system and boost it up to a higher level,
Uh-huh.
so that we then can use psychedelics in a way of general health. And there's some recent research that just came out recently that
Mm-hmm.
shows that psychedelic experiences are good for inflammations.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
a side effect of their doing the therapy has been with some people who have had inflammations. I've seen
Uh-huh.
them partially treated. No, it's not a cure-all, but it certainly helps, and it boosts the natural immune system in the body.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
that's an idea that I hope will catch on a little more, because it gives a reason of people doing psychedelics other than just psychotherapy or religion
Uh-huh.
or
Yeah.
science.
But focusing in the idea of this teaching of religion that you propose, how is your proposal of this transition from the word-based religions to experience-based religions? How is going to be this transition, and what are the main characteristics of experience-based religion?
And the basis of religion?
Yeah, what is going to be this idea of the experience-based religions that you
Oh, yes.
propose?
Yeah.
What are the characteristics, the main characteristics of these experience-based religions, and which role play the entheogens or psychedelics in this transition, actually?
I think that's a big advance. I think Western religion now is moving from a time, especially in Protestantism, some in Catholicism, but less,
Mhm,
of moving from a period of being word-based to
mhm,
experience-based. Now, words are still being important. This is adding another layer. It's not subtracting words, but it's
uh-huh,
adding experience so that the
yeah,
people understand the words. And people
uh-huh,
understand words like awe and grace and heaven and hell and blessedness, not just the words that they hear about and try to
mhm.
believe in, but they have experiences that can make those words seem very real to them in their
Okay,
own
more
experience.
significant. Mhm, mhm,
Yes, and really give them meaning in their own lives. And that's
uh-huh,
I hope that's the distance we're moving in.
uh-huh. Uh, and you say also that under the right conditions, psychedelic plants and chemicals can really produce these mystical experiences, which, in the context of this experiential religion, can play a role, no, in this transition to the experiential religion, no? So you think psychedelics can play a role in this transition to the future of religion? Is correct?
I think the transition is not just away from words, but
Uh-huh.
laying a meaningfulness to them based on experience.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. But psychedelics are going to play a role. You think psychedelics are going to play a role, no? It can be other techniques, meditation or breathing or others, but psychedelics can play really a important role in this process of making religion more experiential. That's correct.
Yes, yes.
You are talking about this in this paper, no? Uh, and also you say that in fact this is already happening, no? That in the late 20s and the 25th century, uh, mm, for many reasons that you talk about in your paper, this is already happening. No, there is many more and more people, like thousands of people, having these meaningful psychedelic mystical experiences. No, so this process is already undergoing from your
Yes,
point of view.
there are some religion groups that are catching on a little of this. There are two major seminaries, Harvard Divinity School at Harvard
Uh-huh,
University and Emory University in Georgia. Um, Emory has a background in Methodism and Harvard in Unitarianism and Congregationalism.
uh-huh,
And they are preparing students um, to work in both medical and religious fields and to
uh-huh,
combine. And there are other universities like University of California, Berkeley, and Ohio State University are
uh-huh,
picking up on this too. So one of the things I'm trying to work on is to get university professors of religion all the way from sociology and philosophy and religious study and history to start looking at the effect of psychedelics and
Uh-huh.
include psychedelics in their teaching. And this is coming along slowly, but it's happening bit by bit.
Uh-huh.
And there are a few professors here and there who are now writing about psychedelics and writing books about it and beginning to teach about it. So we're making progress. And nowhere nearly, of course, as I would like and had hoped, but
Yeah.
still making good progress.
So this seminar study, which was done, no, the Good Friday study in the 60s, which I've been talking about with many of the speakers, this is being replicated, and this idea is being taken again, no? The idea of the use of psychedelics in education, in religious studies, universities. You are talking about this, no?
Yes, the church I was working with is having a big meeting this fall, and we had hoped to be able to introduce a psychedelic resolution in it, but for bureaucratic reasons, it got blocked back at the church, my major office. And I'm trying to get some people to open up tables there that'll give the information. And we have several clergy in the field who are now working on getting this resolution passed. At least the church is set up in a very democratic way, not
Uh-huh.
top down, where the top decides what to do, but bottom up. And
Uh-huh.
so we're introducing the idea at the congregation level and trying to move
Okay.
it up that way. And
Okay.
the church is divided into uh, confederations, sort of like states. And when we're
Uh-huh.
trying to get each state to make its own decision that way.
Wow.
And
So it's been a movement already, no? Uh,
yes, that's right. It's a movement from the bottom up.
yeah. So in fact, you question yourself, no? What if religious studies programs, divinity schools, seminars, religious orders, and similar religious educational institutions could teach their students to know this? And other like them are happening in thousands of people, like really introducing this idea of using psychedelics or other tools to induce really experiential based religious or mystical experiences, no?
I didn't follow that.
So you question yourself, no? What if religious studies programs, divinity schools, seminars, religious orders, and similar religious educational institutions could teach the students to know this in this way? So what can happen? What is the answer for you of this question? If this start happening in a escalating and happening in many different divinity schools, religious studies programs, seminars, what can happen? Which change can we see out of it?
Yeah, they're trying to boost that. Harvard is really taking the lead in that. Leave in that.
Uh-huh.
They and Emory. Harvard has an association of three groups: the Divinity School, the Humanities School, and the Law School are all getting together, and they have one publication that they put out once a month, and sometimes more than that. So that
Uh-huh.
brings together law, the humanities, and theology. And by
Uh-huh.
working together, they're much more powerful than they are individually. And
Mm-hmm.
there are I'm sending out materials um, by email to a list almost every day, and also in the Association for what, American Psychological Association. There's a group on the psychology of religion and spirituality, and
Uh-huh.
I post there to their office to their email um, once a week, approximately,
Uh-huh.
sometimes more than that.
Uh-huh.
And there are some people there, of course, who think it's just a waste of time, but there are a fair number, especially the younger people, who are catching on to this. So it's really quite rewarding to see people catching on to this field. And there are people hidden, allies hidden in the scholastic world and in the church world who know about psychedelics,
Uh-huh.
either just from reading about them or their own experiences. And there's
Uh-huh.
hidden allies who are very helpful in that way.
Uh-huh. So it's already happening, but many people don't want to talk about it publicly, no? It's something happening in a hidden way also.
Yeah, it's coming along. Of course, I always want it to be faster, but who doesn't? But
Uh-huh.
but it's really quite. And now what's really happening is that there's so much interest in psychotherapy that's kind of setting the base. I see psychedelics are going through four stages.
Uh-huh.
The
Okay.
the first stage is basically biology and psychotherapy. And that's
Okay.
most of the interest and most of the money and most of the research is now. And
Uh-huh.
then as people are studying that, like the research that happened at Johns Hopkins, they discovered people are having mystical religious experiences. And then,
Uh-huh.
so that sort of opens up the second stage, the
Uh-huh.
religious entheogen stage.
Okay.
And that's the
Okay.
stage now that I'm trying to develop. And this is just coming along. It's coming along, but not as much as the medical biological
Uh-huh.
stage. And then
Okay.
as people study religion, they get into things like values and humanities and the arts and nature of truth, the nature of mind. And those then move us for just from the religious area and the spiritual area into the more um, philosophical, intellectual, scholarly area.
Okay. Okay.
And then what I see happening is that people start asking a different type of question. When they get, they'll say, well, here we are studying psychedelics and all the things they can do. Are there other things
Uh-huh.
other that the mind can do besides psychedelics? So then they get into hypnosis and meditation and yoga and
Uh-huh.
the martial arts
Uh-huh.
and realize that psychedelics are just the opening to a much wider view of the human mind
Uh-huh.
and the possibility that our mind can use a lot of different states and even by combining them in new ways make states that have never existed before. For example, let's say you find let's say psychedelics and meditation and breathing exercise.
Okay.
A new recipe, you could produce new recipes that the human
Uh-huh.
can produce. And those new
Mm-hmm.
recipes will allow us to do things with our minds that we haven't done before.
Uh-huh.
So that's the big four stages that I see that we're working on. And
Uh-huh.
of course, biology and medicine is the first stage, and that leads us into the second religion stage, and that leads us
Uh-huh.
into the scholarly stage. And then the
Okay.
bigger question is the human mind is something we can design, not just
Okay.
take it is.
So
By
the
combining
idea
these
of
up, like
uh-huh.
chemistry, we can put them together in different elements together and make
Yeah.
new chemicals. We can put different mind apps, I call them,
Okay.
together and produce new things in our minds.
Okay. So the idea of ideogens, in which stage you are putting it in the third or in the fourth? The idea of ideogens.
Yes,
This
yes.
is in the third stage or in the fourth stage? Ideogens idea.
Yeah, I think it's important to, like when you talk with people, you, Bernard, who say, "Oh, I have this idea I never thought before, or I never thought about looking at things this way, or I
Uh-huh.
wonder what would happen if." So we have, or we can look at psychedelics in every academic field. You're not
Uh-huh.
just medicine and biology and psychotherapy,
Yeah.
but of course there's the history, but there's the psychedelic approaches to history, sociology, psychology, and the arts. And so I
Uh-huh.
want those fields to get enriched with psychedelics the way biology and medicine have gotten enriched.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And to see what happened. Yeah.
yeah.
And can you describe us as this concept of mind apps? What is the meaning of mind apps for you?
Oh, um, it's a little analogy I make is on our computers, we can install programs and apps and we can do
Uh-huh.
new things with them. And I'm
Uh-huh.
saying we can do the same thing with our minds.
Uh-huh.
We can install new things in our minds and do different new things with our minds when we develop these various apps. And
Uh-huh.
we have all the research that's going on now in the nervous system, the human mind, is really largely done from the point of view of health and mental health. But also, those are ways of learning to use our minds in different ways. For
Uh-huh.
example, a lot of research now on using magnetism and light and
Uh-huh.
sound on the human brain. Now, they're using it, to overcome illnesses and strokes and that sort of thing. But I'm saying
Uh-huh.
this also opens the door to developing the human mind. That's like combined, let's say, magnetism with hypnosis and
Uh-huh.
MDMA. We would produce a mind body. We could consider those things as
Yeah.
similar to three elements in chemistry. We can combine and make new elements. We
Uh-huh.
would combine new mind apps into new
Uh-huh.
combinations and do different things with our brain mind complex.
So there are many things to be studied already, no? And combined to know what really can be done with all these medicines, no?
And just we have no idea what some of these
Yeah.
combinations. I
No, no
think
one
most,
has done these combinations already, no?
yeah, I think most of them will just be interesting. There won't be much use.
Yeah,
You know, like in chemistry, you can put all these chemicals together in lots of ways, and most of them are just kind of curiosities, but a few
yeah,
of them are useful. And what we
yeah,
have to do is discover which mind states would be useful for what, under what situations.
yeah.
And just as we do now with chemicals, we have to treat our brain-mind complex as
Uh-huh.
chemical constructions.
Okay. Well, going back to the idea of psychedelics and mystical experiences, you also mentioned Houston Smith, which was one of the participants in the God Friday experiment, and you quote him saying that, well, you quote him twice. You say that he really said that his psychedelic experience was very meaningful in the sense of being a mystical experience, but then you quote him saying that the main point is not the mystical experience. The main point is to have a spiritual life. That's correct?
Yes, that's right. It's because who are you, did I quote?
Houston Smith. I mean, this is in your paper, no? You say first that in the cleansing the doors of perception, he really say that the role of the mind altering plants and chemicals have played an important role in human history. He also mentioned that he has a really meaningful experience with psilocybin in the Good Friday experiment. But then you quote him saying that the main point is not only a one-time mystical experience. The main point is to have a mystical life or a spiritual life, no, which is a little bit connected with your idea, no, of the mind apps that you need to follow the practice in different ways, no, to have a spiritual path or a spiritual life, no.
Yes, yes, that we can definitely do use that. The question is, we don't know the number of things that we're capable of doing with our minds,
Uh-huh.
and following that combination and things that other people said, who knows what might be possible.
Uh-huh.
Um, oh, I just
I don't,
noticed in the background. This was your evening there. The lights have just come on.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful.
getting dark here, but it's beautiful. Yeah. So, and also you start connecting all these ideas with transpersonal psychology, which is one of your interests, and you were co-founder of the Association of International Transpersonal Association, no? So one of the co-founders, Maslow, was already talking about this, no? In his book, Religious Values and Peak Experiences, no? Can you explain us a little bit what was the idea or the proposal of Maslow in this book regarding the connection between peak experiences and religion? Abraham,
I didn't catch
Abraham,
that.
Abraham Maslow, you also mentioned,
Oslo?
yes, what he said about the connection between peak experiences and religion.
Oh, yes. I did my dissertation on Maslow's needs hierarchy, and
Uh-huh,
he was not far from Stanford. I visited him a couple of times,
uh-huh,
and at that time I was using his older five-star vision of psychedelics, or five-level vision, was self-actualization at the top.
uh-huh,
And he was telling me about something else that I didn't understand at the time called self-transcendence.
uh-huh,
And he was interested in Groff's work, among others, because Groff had apparently developed a way of developing beyond self-transcendence. Like
uh-huh,
Maslow started talking about a need beyond self-transcendence,
uh-huh,
self self-actualization rather, and beyond self-actualization was self-transcendence.
uh-huh,
And as he was studying that, he started the field of transpersonal psychology. And I got to know him and Jim Fadiman and some of the other people in the field that
mhm,
way.
mhm,
And by following Maslow's work, eventually I got interested in self-transcendence. And then I
uh-huh,
realized when I had a psychedelic experience, this is the
mhm.
type of experience he was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was very lucky in a sense that my study of Maslow, although I turned down the idea of transcendence when he first mentioned it to me, I
Uh-huh.
didn't understand it at all. Later,
Yeah.
after my experience, I said, "Oh, this is what he's after."
Okay. And you also met James Fadiman, which is also another pioneer of transpersonal psychology who talk about this connection between psychedelics and spiritual growth. No, in his book, let me check in English the name of the book of James Fadiman, The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide. No, he talk about how to organize and guide spiritual experiences. No. Or spiritual context to have spiritual experiences through psychedelics, no? That's correct?
I think I got you on that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
James Fadiman, in his book, you met James Fadiman, no? You are friends with James Fadiman, and he proposed ways to guide and induce spiritual experiences with psychedelics in his book, The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide. That's correct?
Yeah, what? Yes.
James Fadiman, James Fadiman.
Yes, right. Yeah,
in
Jim
his
and
book,
I are old friends. Yes, I reviewed his most recent book on micro.
yeah, okay. But in his book, The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide, he talked about this possibility, no, guiding and creating context to induce spiritual experiences or for spiritual growth, no, so the use of psychedelics for spiritual growth. He also talked about this, no, James Fadiman.
Yes, we're talking about Jim's main point, and I wish it would one we could touch on more, is the importance of psychedelics in creative problem solving.
Yeah, this is one idea that he was also resistant. Yeah,
yeah. Jim is especially good at that, and of course he was part of that original study that was done back in 1966.
Yeah,
the main author of that was Bill Harmon. That guy I had that class with at Stanford.
Yeah, you were with him. Yeah,
yeah, and Jim's book, Psychedelic Explorer's Guide.
Yes,
is clearly one of the best in the field. I really recommend it to everybody. Actually, my favorite in the field is Stan Grof's book. Realms of the Human Unconscious was the original title.
Yeah.
And the new title is LSD Doorway to the Numinous.
Yeah.
I think Stan has the deepest sample and study of the human mind because he looks not only at what's looked at now in psychotherapy is overcoming personal problems, like depression and anxiety or alcoholism. And now the work that's being now is working on those particular problems. But when those problems are solved, that doesn't mean that's the end of it. As far as the psychotherapist is served, the client shows up, the problem is solved, and it's over with. But in addition to that, the client has all their experiences going from birth to now that they have to go through. So some people will have a presenting problem taken care of and solved, and then they'll do psychedelics again, and they have all this terrible stuff coming back, and it's stuff that's still garbage from earlier life that hasn't been resolved. So that's why it's good to work on the particular presenting problem and solve that and get that out of the way with. But still, there has to be a second stage going back. And actually, according to Stan's work, it goes not just to childhood and birth, but to childhood and to pre-birth, the fetal stage. And I think that's a big contribution that's been missed in current psychotherapy. And I wish people will pay more attention to that. By the way, Stan's birthday is July 1st, so coming up in a month.
Yes, he's making 95, I think, 94 this year. So he's been around 94.
Yes.
1931. So
yes, that's right. He's 6 years younger than I am. Yes.
Yeah, and he was one of the co-founders of transpersonal psychology with Maslow and James Fadiman. He proposed all this cartography, talking about how you need to heal also that this collective unconscious or transpersonal level. So he has many contributions. He also talked a lot about this spiritual realm or the importance of the mystical experiences through psychedelics for healing and for spiritual growth. So he has many contributions. But you also you want to say something more about Stan, or we are going to move forward a little bit more? If you want, no, if you want to ask something else about Stan Grof, or I'm going to ask you about Myron Stolarov also, who you also mentioned in your paper, Myron Stolarov. Myron Stolarov.
Oh, wait, I'm not.
Myron Stolarov, the co-founder of the International Foundation for Advanced Studies, where Will Harman and James Fadiman were doing research. Myron Stolarov. Yeah, my accent is not perfect. The co-founder of the International Foundation for Advanced Studies, who proposed a protocol for a sacramental service. Stolarov.
I should get what you're saying, but I'm not.
Myron Stolarov, the co-founder of the International Foundation for Advanced Studies, the author of the book, of Leo Feff. You remember the author of the interview with Leo Feff, Myron Stolarov, the co-founder of the International Foundation for Advanced Studies.
I know I should recognize what you're saying.
Myron Stolarov, it's my accent, but he wrote this paper, a protocol for a sacramental service. So he wrote a paper about how to use psychedelics in a sacramental context, in a religious context. Myron Stolarov, you mentioned it in the paper also. He was the co-founder of the International Foundation for Advanced Studies. You are not hearing me now.
No, I'm almost. It's funny. I'm all.
The author of the Secret Chief, the author of the book The Secret Chief. Well, anyway, we are going to move forward, but the idea is that they are really, and you also make a proposal, no, about how the psychedelics can be used as sacraments, no? You have this paper, Religion and the Psychoactive Sacraments, and Entheogens Christomathy. So you have been talking about how to introduce the use of psychedelics inside sacraments, no? This is one of your first ideas, no?
Introduce psychedelics in
sacraments inside the religious traditions. Introduce the psychedelics as sacraments within religion. So you say religion and psychoactive sacrament, and Entheogens Christomathy. It's a paper with written by you and Hewry. So you collect different proposals or ideas connected with this idea of using psychedelics as sacraments within religion context. That's correct?
Using psychedelics as religion? Is that
Yes. You propose that psychedelics can be reintroduced as sacraments in religious contexts. That's correct?
I'm sure it is. Let's talk about psychedelic and religion. Is that it?
Yes. But your proposal is that psychedelics can be introduced again or now has sacraments in religious context, like in the liturgy.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Yes, sacraments. Yes. Can you explain us this idea?
Yes. Some researchers showed up that when psychedelics use, it tends to confirm people's original positions. Like originally it was thought that psychedelics makes people change religion. That happens to some extent, but they're finding out that people tend to understand their current religion in a better way, so that those who are familiar, let's say, with the psychedelics or sacraments, that they tend to incorporate them into religion. I would like to see something happen where, let's say, religious groups, let's say a religious order, for example, would take up psychedelics as their business. I would love to see the Jesuits get into this from an intellectual point of view. And I think that orders of nuns would be wonderful people to lead sessions because they are so understanding and loving, and this would be
Uh-huh.
a wonderful advance in psychedelics,
Uh-huh.
and it would help the orders sort of develop their own way of working too. I could imagine that, let's say in Protestant churches, that certain groups would form that would be their word would be to use psychedelics in a spiritual, religious sense. And it's very important to notice that psychedelics are not right for everyone. And we should
Yeah.
not make the mistake of suppose we commonly make the mistake that I made when I first took psychedelics.
Yeah.
This was wonderful. Everybody should do this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
realize that a lot later, the experience I had was my set and my setting. Not everybody else with different sets and different settings would have very different experiences.
Yeah.
Wrong to suppose that the feeling and experience I had would be the same that other people would have. And most people make that mistake too. There's particularly people who had good experience, I think, well, everybody should do this. But
Yeah.
really, people have to be screened. For
Yeah.
example, at Johns Hopkins, they have a very careful screening, and then they prepare people for the experience, and
Uh-huh.
then they take them through the experience, and then it's important they say, "What do you make out of this integration?"
Uh-huh.
And now that's in the psychotherapeutic protocol. The question now, what would be a protocol in religion, and
Uh-huh.
who would be the right people in religion to um, to take on this responsibility?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think very few, because you would have to know about religion, you'd have to know about psychotherapy, and you would have to be careful not to press your own religion on the client or the novice, whatever they would be.
Uh-huh.
And this, and there are all the questions about um, freedom of religion. Um, if the government makes laws about who can and cannot do psychedelics, isn't this the government interfering with freedom of religion and saying you
Mm-hmm.
can do this and you can't do this? And
Mm-hmm.
so we have all those questions to look up. And I would like to see, and other people have, Houston Smith thought this, and Bill Richards says this.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
would like to see um, a, a a new cohort of professionals who are trained in both religious background and psychotherapy background, so
Uh-huh.
that they can work with people in the field and give them, psychedelic experiences that will make sense um,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually to them, but not, and they may or may not be psychotherapists, but they would
Uh-huh.
have that experience. And the
Uh-huh.
question then is, well, who would be eligible to lead a situation like this? But
Uh-huh.
I don't think most clergy would, because they have such a specific view of the human mind.
Uh-huh.
We would need a new type of combination, surgery, spiritual um, experience combined.
Uh-huh.
We have to develop a new type of religious leader who can do this.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, in fact, there is also happening now. It was done in the 60s and it's being replicated, no? A study in religious leaders, no? With psychedelics, both in Johns Hopkins and New York University.
Yes, there's some. Yes, like Harvard is doing that, and at Berkeley, where they
Uh-huh.
have the scientific studies session,
Uh-huh.
they also
Okay.
have some people there who are associated with the theology school.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
This is an enormous problem, and now that's when we come out to say the first stage I mentioned, the biological psychotherapy
Uh-huh.
stage, to
Uh-huh.
the entheogen stage. What happens when we get into literature?
Yeah.
Uh, I cannot imagine a standard professor of literature being a good guide to graduate students, taking them to understand, let's say, part of romantic therapy. Um, and we would also need to we develop a whole new line of professors or
Uh-huh.
professionals who would combine academic work plus psychotherapeutic work plus psychedelic work in order, let's say, imagine there's a graduate course in a university where
Yeah.
graduate students say, understanding sublimation in poetry,
Yeah.
an experiential course.
Yeah.
I can't see any professors I know leading that, but I can imagine
Yeah.
there would be people trained in that.
Well, at least we know to Aldous Huxley, who was a great philosopher and author. He has a great experience and it has a lot of effect, significant effect in his work, no? To Aldous
Yeah,
Huxley. Yeah.
we have to develop that. those whole new professional levels.
Yeah. Well, but this, well, we have, I was proposing the same, no, that the medicine, the psychedelic medicine, psychedelic psychotherapy fields is very evolved. We are now in this field of like the mystical and the religious studies, or which place can play psychedelics in the field of mysticism and religious studies, and even in the religious organizations. But then we have all these other fields of creativity, education, which are even less explored, no? Problem solving. So, I mean, we are really in the beginning of all this field, no? In fact, it's pretty new. It's like only 60 years, and in the middle we have had 50 years of almost total provision, no? So it's not so old, no? We are just in the beginning.
Yeah, if we look at all the places where psychedelics have been used well in cultures, let's say in South America or the Native Americans, they have developed ways of integrating them into the culture. And we have to develop context for our culture. And as we develop these various levels, we have to develop new contexts, new containers
Yeah.
for psychedelics.
Yeah.
So that the people who are leading them are capable of leading them, and they can screen out who this could be good for. One of the things I thought interesting, that Myron Stolaroff mentioned, he's one of the early people in the field, is that he thought that a good training for people doing psychedelics would be to take MDMA. And if they're comfortable with that, then they can do psychedelics. But if they don't like and they're not comfortable with MDMA, then they should stay away from psychedelics. I think that's a good screening technique.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we need to re-explore many things, no? Like the screening, who is a good candidate, how to make that possible for a person who really wants to do it, which steps we need to do before, all the preparation, which other techniques may be used for preparing a person, and this idea of using MDMA can be one of them, or even breath work or meditation. So yeah, many things to explore. So thank you very much, Robert. We have been almost 1 hour, I think 40, 45 minutes. I don't know if you want to add something else, any other idea that you want to share with us.
Oh, I know there must be things after we think. I think, oh, I should have said this, should have said that.
How do you see the field in 10 years? What do you think is going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Oh, I wish I knew. So these things can happen very quickly and very slowly. I mean, for example, suppose a senator's wife is an alcoholic and is treated very successfully with that would bring it along very much on the political background for it. We all have these decades old TV shows saying stay away from this. This is your brain on drugs. All those things.
Yeah.
Those ideas and those ideas have to either be overcome or the people just sort of dying and move out of away from it. Progress is happening, but I think the real advance will be when we develop more in the psychotherapy area, and more people are treated in psychotherapy, and they realize that this could be a healthy thing. And then along the way, people have religious and spiritual experiences and say, "Oh, I see what they're talking about when they talk about blessedness or God or holiness. Oh, I see what they're talking about. It's not just a word out there or a word on a book. It's an experience people can have."
Yeah. Thank you very much. Well, and I have another last question, because it's connected with what we were talking about. But there are already religious organizations which are using, or spiritual organizations which are using psychedelics. For example, the Native American Church or Santo Daime, no? So there are already contexts with many followers in which religion are combined with the use of psychedelics. So this may happen in other contexts also, no? Like new contexts in which psychedelics are introduced in religious organizations or spiritual organizations. That's correct?
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to ask you, what building is that behind you with the tower?
The building is, this is the Basilica de San Pedro. We are in the Basilica this is the San Pedro Square, and
Oh,
behind the San Pedro Square is the Basilica de San Pedro, which is the main building and temple of the Christianity. So in the Vatican, we are in the Vatican right now.
oh, this evening light is just gorgeous, just
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah. Well, and we
Yeah,
have
that's
a
perfect.
a very clear night also. So we have been really lucky with. But this is a really special place. I mean, the energy of the place after thousands and millions of people coming here through hundreds of years to celebrate the beliefs and well, and having also uh, deep experiences just coming to here. So the place is really with a really nice energy. And the window in the middle of the building is the window from which the Pope
Oh, that's the
go
place?
out. Yeah, that's the place.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah, this is
wow.
the place where the
Hi
Pope
there.
it's gonna be at home, but now it's late, so probably it's gonna be at home. So on Sunday it's gonna be a mass. The main mass, his first main mass, being the new Pope, is from this window and from this building.
Oh,
So this square is gonna be full of 100,000 people, but there is gonna be also people not only in the square but in the avenues surrounding us. So yeah, it's a special. Well, it's like La Mecca for the Christians, really. It's like the equivalent of La Mecca to the Christians. So a very special and holy place also. So
oh,
perfect
that's
to talk
wonderful.
about psychedelics, about the Entheogens mystical experiences and the future of religion, really. Yeah,
You have a perfect location.
yeah, totally. So thank you very much, Robert, for your time. So this is gonna be available in our internet, in our YouTube channel, the YouTube channel of the Integrative Transpersonal Institute. So I will send you the link as I upload it. And so we are going to have some more interviews. This is the seventh I have done so far, including Albert Garcia Romeo, who you know from Johns Hopkins. Also Brian Richards, the son of Bill Richards, participate. Also Jorge Ferrer, Luis Eduardo Luna, yourself, and some others. But already I'm pushing to happen with Rick Doblin, also someone from Imperial College. I'm trying to have someone also from New York University, from like the main research centers. So we're still having these interviews at least for a few more days from the Vatican. So thank you very much, and we will be
Thank
in
you.
touch. Yeah, yeah. Nice to have you also.
That's
Bye bye.
wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Have a good day. Bye. Bye
Bye.
bye.